The Apache Mother's treasure map. The iron shackles cut deep into Itzel's wrists as the slave trader's wagon bounced violently over the rough, unforgiving desert terrain. Her 3-year-old son Miguel whimpered softly in her aching arms, his small, fragile body burning with fever from the brutal journey they had endured for what seemed like an eternity. 4 or 5 long torturous days. They had been traveling steadily toward the notorious slave markets of New Mexico Territory, where Apache women and children were sold like livestock to work in dangerous mines and wealthy households. Throughout the Southwest, Itzel was definitely no ordinary Apache woman trapped in this nightmare situation. She was the beloved daughter of Chief Thundercloud, the respected leader of one of the most powerful and feared tribes in the entire Southwest region. But that distinguished heritage meant absolutely nothing to the ruthless slave traders who had captured her. During a devastating dawn raid on her peaceful village, her father's greatest warriors were away on an extended hunting expedition, leaving the settlement tragically vulnerable to this unexpected and brutal attack. The massive wagon train consisted of 12 heavily armed men and their cruel, heartless leader, Captain Maurice, a badly scarred veteran who had made his considerable fortune trafficking in human misery across the frontier territories. He rode alongside the wagons with military precision, his cold, calculating eyes constantly scanning the horizon for any sign of Apache pursuit or potential rescue attempts from her tribe. "Keep those savages quiet," Maurice barked harshly at his men when Miguel's pitiful crying grew louder and more desperate. "We're still deep in hostile territory, and I don't want to attract attention." Itzel pressed her precious son closer to her chest, whispering ancient Apache lullabies that her own grandmother had sung to her as a child to calm him. She had been carefully planning their escape since the very moment of capture, methodically studying the daily routines of their guards, memorizing every detail of the landscape they passed through, and patiently waiting for the perfect moment to strike and claim their freedom. That crucial moment came on the 5th night of their captivity. During the guards' shift change, when most of the men were drinking whiskey and telling crude stories around their campfire, Itzel saw her chance at last, using a sharp stone she had secretly hidden in her clothing. She quietly cut through the thick rope, binding her feet. Then, with movements as silent and graceful as a hunting cat, she slipped away from the wagon with Miguel held tightly in her arms. The desert night was cold and absolutely unforgiving, but Itzel moved with the natural confidence of someone born and raised in this harsh land. She navigated expertly by the brilliant stars overhead, heading determinedly toward a distant mountain range where she knew Apache territory began. Behind her, she could hear the slave traders discovering her escape, their angry voices filled with rage, and the urgent sound of horses being quickly saddled for pursuit. For what felt like hours, Itzel ran desperately through the darkness, her son clinging tightly to her neck. Her bare feet bled from the sharp, rocky ground, but she pushed forward relentlessly, driven by a mother's fierce, desperate love. As dawn slowly broke over the horizon, painting the sky in brilliant shades of gold and crimson, she found temporary shelter in a narrow canyon, hidden completely from view by towering red rocks. It was Tere, while desperately trying to catch her breath and tend to Miguel's dangerous fever, that Itzel made an absolutely extraordinary discovery that would change her life forever. Carved into the canyon wall were symbols, not Apache petroglyphs, but something older and different. Spanish colonial markings, mixed with indigenous signs, and tucked into a crevice in the rock was an oiled leather pouch, protected from the elements by its careful hiding place. With trembling hands, Itzel opened the pouch and found something that would change her life forever. a detailed map drawn on treated deerskin, showing landmarks she recognized, and marked with symbols indicating the location of a vast Spanish treasure hidden during the colonial period. The map told a story of Spanish conquistadors who had been forced to bury their stolen gold when Apache warriors drove them from the territory generations ago. The treasure had been lost for over a century, its location known only to this carefully preserved map. But there was more in the pouch. A letter written in Spanish, which Itzel could read thanks to the Jesuit missionaries who had once lived with her tribe. The letter explained that this treasure was meant to be found by an Apache leader who would use it to secure a lasting peace between the native peoples and the newcomers. Settling in the territory, sacred trust, Itzel whispered, understanding the magnitude of what she had found. This wasn't just gold. It was a key to changing the future of her people. The sound of approaching horses interrupted her thoughts. The slave traders had found her trail. "Miguel, we must run again," she told her son, carefully hiding the map in her clothing. But as she prepared to flee deeper into the canyon, a different sound reached her ears. A single horse approaching from the opposite direction. Emerging from behind a boulder was a lone rider, clearly wounded and bleeding from his left shoulder. The man was a cowboy, his weathered face marked by pain and exhaustion. His horse limped badly, favoring its right front leg. When he saw Itzel and Miguel, he slowly raised his uninjured hand to show he meant no harm. "Ma'am," he said in a gravelly voice. "Name's Cole Bennett. I don't mean any trouble." Itzel clutched Miguel protectively, unsure whether this stranger was friend or foe. In the distance, the voices of Maurice and his men grew louder. "Those men chasing you?" Cole asked, noticing her fearful glances toward the sounds of pursuit. Itzel nodded, then made a quick decision. "Slave traders," she said in accented, but clear English. "They take Apache women, children, sell them." Cole's face hardened with anger. Despite his wounds, he straightened in his saddle. "Well, that ain't happening today. Not on my watch." "You help us?" Itzel asked, surprised by this unexpected offer from a white man. "Yes, ma'am. I've got no love for slave traders. My own sister was taken by similar scum when I was younger. Never saw her again." The sound of horses was getting closer. Cole made a rapid assessment of their situation. "Can you ride?" he asked. "Yes, but your horse is injured. She'll hold up long enough. We need to reach that ridge." Cole pointed to a distant rocky outcrop. "There's an old mining camp there. We can make a stand if we have to." Without further discussion, Cole helped Itzel and Miguel onto his horse, then climbed up behind them. Despite the animal's injury, they managed to reach the abandoned mining camp just as Maurice and his men emerged into the canyon below. The mining camp consisted of several wooden structures built into the hillside, including a main building that had once housed miners and a smaller cabin that served as an office. Cole quickly surveyed their defensive position. "This'll do," he said, helping Itzel down from the horse. "Plenty of cover, and only one way up." As they took shelter in the main building, Itzel found herself studying this unexpected ally. Cole was perhaps 35 years old, with calloused hands that spoke of hard work and eyes that had seen too much violence. His shoulder wound was from a bullet, and he moved with the careful precision of someone accustomed to dangerous situations. "Why?" "Yeah." Itzel asked, as they waited for the slave traders to approach. "Was tracking some cattle rustlers when I ran into those traders yesterday. They didn't take kindly to questions about their cargo. Cole touched his wounded shoulder, been playing cat and mouse ever since. Below them, Morris had positioned his men at the base of the trail leading up to the mining camp. The slave trader's voice echoed off the canyon walls. "Listen here, whoever you are. You're harboring stolen property. Send down that Apache squaw and her brat, and we'll let you ride away." Cole's response was to fire a warning shot that kicked up dust near Maurice's feet. "Property? That's a woman and child. You son of a... Have it your way." Maurice shouted back, "Boys, we're going up." The siege began at midday. Maurice's men tried to advance up the narrow trail, but Cole's accurate rifle fire and the natural defensive advantages of the position kept them pinned down. However, Itzel knew they couldn't hold out forever. They had limited ammunition, no food, and Cole was losing blood from his wound. During a lull in the fighting, as Cole reloaded his rifle, Itzel made a decision that would change everything. "I have something to show you," Set told Cole, pulling out the ancient map from her clothing. Cole's eyes widened as he studied the detailed markings. "What is this?" "Spanish treasure map. I found it when hiding from slave traders. Gold buried nearby, waiting long time." Cole examined the landmarks shown on the map, comparing them to the surrounding geography. "This mark here, that's Devil's Spine, about 5 miles north. And that's got to be Widow's Screet. You know these places. I've been all over this territory. If this map is accurate, that treasure is somewhere in the valley between here and the northern ridgeline." It's all looked directly into Cole's eyes. "I've idea. We find gold. We change everything." "How do you mean?" "Gold can buy more than just safety. It can buy peace, land, future for my people." As if to emphasize her point, another volley of gunfire erupted from below. Maurice was getting impatient. Cole studied the map more carefully. According to this, the main treasure site is marked by a distinctive rock formation. Looks like 3 fingers pointing skyward. "I know this place," Itzel said with growing excitement. "My people call it Hand of the Spirits. It is sacred ground, maybe 2 hours' ride from here." Another idea was forming in Cole's mind. That Morris down there. He's not the brightest. If we could lead him and his men on a chase that takes him away from the treasure site. You think we escape and find gold? I think we might be able to do something even better than that. Cole's plan was audacious, using his knowledge of the terrain and Itzel's understanding of Apache tactics. They would lead the slave traders on a complex chase through the desert, ultimately bringing them to a location where they could be trapped or eliminated. Then, with the immediate threat removed, they could search for the Spanish treasure. "But why you help me?" Itzel asked it. "This not your fight." Cole was quiet for a moment, looking out at the desert landscape. "Like I said, I lost my sister to men like Maurice, but more than that." "What you're talking about? Using that gold for peace instead of personal gain. That's something worth fighting for." The escape began at sunset. Cole created a diversion by setting fire to one of the old mining buildings, drawing Maurice's men toward the flames. In the confusion, he and Itzel slipped away on foot, carrying Miguel and moving through a hidden ravine that led away from the camp. By the time Maurice realized they had escaped, Cole and Itzel were miles away. Following the landmarks shown on the ancient map, they traveled through the night, taking turns carrying Miguel, sharing the little water Cole had in his canteen. As dawn broke over the desert, they saw it. The Hand of the Spirits, a remarkable rock formation that looked exactly like 3 stone fingers reaching toward the sky. According to the map, the treasure was buried at the base of the central finger, beneath a triangular arrangement of stones. What they found there exceeded their wildest dreams. The Spanish gold had been carefully buried in multiple caches, wrapped in oiled leather to protect it from the elements. There were gold coins, jewelry, religious artifacts, and silver ingots. A fortune that represented the accumulated wealth of Spanish colonial expeditions. "This is more gold than I ever imagined," Cole whispered as they uncovered cache after cache. But Itzel was already thinking beyond the immediate windfall. This gold, it can buy the town. What town? Copper Canyon, 15 miles south. I hear white settlers want to sell. Move east, we're safer. If he be town, make it safe place for Apache and white people both. Place where children like Miguel can grow up without fear. Cole stared at her, understanding the revolutionary nature of what she was proposing. You want to create a multiracial settlement? In this territory? Yes. Place where Apache knowledge and white technology work together, where my son learned both ways, make bridge between peoples. It was an unprecedented idea. An Apache woman using Spanish treasure to purchase an entire frontier town and transform it into a haven of cooperation between races and cultures. It could work, Cole said slowly. But it won't be easy. A lot of folks on both sides won't like it. All good things are difficult first, Itzel replied with wisdom beyond her years. They loaded what gold they could carry and began the journey toward Copper Canyon. Along the way, they were indeed pursued again by Maurice and his remaining men. But now the dynamic had changed. With the treasure secured and a clear plan in mind, Cole and Itzel worked as a team to outmaneuver their pursuers. The final confrontation came at the edge of Copper Canyon itself. Maurice, desperate and running out of options, made one last attempt to capture Itzel. But the residents of the town, who had heard about the slave traders' activities, sided with the unlikely pair of refugees. Sheriff Tom Bradley, a fair-minded man who had been troubled by reports of slave trading in his territory, arrested Maurice and his remaining men on charges of kidnapping and human trafficking. "Ma'am," Sheriff Bradley said to Itzel, "I understand you might be interested in purchasing some property in town." Word of Itzel's proposal had spread quickly through Copper Canyon. The idea of an Apache woman buying the entire settlement was shocking, unprecedented, and exactly what the struggling town needed. The town's founder, William Copper, was indeed ready to sell. The constant threat of Apache raids, combined with the isolation and harsh conditions, had made Copper Canyon a difficult place to maintain. Many residents were planning to leave for safer territories. "I'll be honest with you, ma'am," Copper told Itzel during their negotiation. "This town needs something different if it's going to survive. Your idea of cooperation between peoples, it's radical, but it might just work." The purchase was completed within a week. Using the Spanish gold, Itzel bought not only the existing buildings and land, but also secured supplies, livestock, and resources needed to transform Copper Canyon into her vision of a peaceful, integrated community. Cole, who had become both her trusted friend and partner in this venture, helped facilitate communications between the Apache and white residents. His reputation as a fair and honest man carried weight with the settlers. while Itzel's wisdom and natural leadership earned respect from both communities. McGill, who had started this journey as a sick child in chains, now played freely in the streets of a town where Apache children and settler children learned from each other, where traditional hunting techniques were shared alongside modern farming methods, where multiple languages were spoken and multiple cultures celebrated. Years later, Copper Canyon became known throughout the territory as a model of successful integration. Itzel served as the town's first female mayor, while Cole became sheriff, ensuring that the peace they had built would be protected. The story of the Apache mother who escaped slavery and used Spanish treasure to buy a town became legend throughout the Southwest. It proved that, with courage, wisdom, and a willingness to see beyond old prejudices, even the most bitter enemies could become allies. And in the center of town, where the old trading post once stood, Itzel erected a monument, not to conquest or conflict, but to the idea that true treasure isn't gold or silver, but the peace that comes when different peoples choose to build something beautiful together.